For 52 years, the Democratic Republic of the Congo waited to return to the FIFA World Cup. Generations of players came and went, but the dream remained just out of reach. Then, in 2026, the Leopards finally made history, ending more than half a century of waiting and bringing a nation together in celebration once again. That victory was about far more than football. It was a reminder that behind every headline is a country of extraordinary resilience, breathtaking beauty, and more than 100 million people whose story extends far beyond the world's perception. This is the Democratic Republic of the Congo, not just the nation that returned to the World Cup after 52 years, but one of Africa's most fascinating and least understood countries. Subscribe for more travel documentaries from the most remote corners of the planet, and drop a comment. Where are you watching from? There are countries blessed by nature. There are countries cursed by history. And then there is one country that somehow became both. A land with enough minerals to help power the entire modern world. Enough rivers to light a continent. Enough forests to influence the planet's climate. Enough wealth beneath its soil to make nations jealous. Yet nearly 7 out of every 10 people there live in extreme poverty. How can the richest land on Earth produce some of the poorest people? The answer is not simple. It is 5 centuries long. This is the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Democratic Republic of Congo covers 2,344,858 square kilometers. The second largest country in Africa and the 11th largest on Earth. The total land area is 2,267,050 square kilometers. It is roughly the size of Western Europe. You could fit France, Germany, Spain, Italy, Poland, the United Kingdom, and the Netherlands inside its borders and still have space left for Belgium, the country that once claimed to own it. This is not a detail. It is the premise. Everything about the Congo, its wealth, its tragedy, its ungovernable complexity, its resilience, begins with the fact that the land is immense in a way that defies administrative logic. Ground transport in the Democratic Republic of the Congo has always been difficult. The terrain and climate of the Congo Basin present serious barriers to road and rail construction, and the distances are enormous across this vast country. Chronic economic mismanagement and internal conflict have led to serious underinvestment over many years. At the center of it all is the river. The Congo River is the second longest in Africa and the deepest river on the planet, in places over 200 meters deep, carrying a volume of water that is surpassed only by the Amazon. It drains an area of nearly 4 million square kilometers, a basin that contains the second largest tropical rainforest on Earth. A forest that functions as one of the planet's great carbon sinks, absorbing more carbon dioxide than it releases in a process that is, without exaggeration, keeping the global climate from deteriorating faster than it already is. The forest itself is staggering. It is home to forest elephants, bonobos, found nowhere else on Earth, okapis, gorillas, and a density of life that science has not finished cataloguing. The Virunga National Park in the east, Africa's oldest national park, contains mountain gorillas whose populations have been studied, protected, and fought over for decades. Rangers there have died, hundreds of them, defending animals that the international community declares precious while funding their protection with a fraction of what it spends on marketing campaigns for electric vehicles that use the minerals dug from Congolese soil. The geography shifts dramatically as you move across the country. The central basin is equatorial rainforest, dense, humid, crossed by waterways that serve as roads in the absence of actual ones. The Democratic Republic of the Congo has thousands of kilometers of navigable waterways, and traditionally, water transport has been the dominant means of moving around approximately 2/3 of the country. The east rises into the Albertine Rift, mountains, volcanoes, and the Great Lakes that border Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and Tanzania. The south opens into Copperbelt savanna, the mineral heartland that has attracted the world's appetite since the colonial period. The north blends into Sudanic woodland and then the fringes of the Sahel. The climate is equatorial at the center, hot, wet, and relentless. Rainfall in the Congo Basin can exceed 2,000 millimeters per year, producing a humidity that does not relent, that colonizes clothing and skin and electronics with equal indifference, that turns unpaved roads into impassable mud in hours and keeps them that way for months. In the south, the climate becomes more seasonal. In the east, altitude produces a highland coolness that early European colonizers found pleasant enough to build their administrative towns in. Which is, if you think about it, the entire history of colonialism summarized in a climate preference. What the land contains beneath its surface is perhaps the most consequential geological inheritance on the planet. Cobalt, copper, coltan, lithium, gold, diamonds, tin, tungsten, uranium. The Congolese uranium that went into the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Dr. Key holds some of the world's largest reserves of cobalt, about 50 to 70% of global supply, copper, coltan, lithium and gold. The dock sits on an estimated $24 trillion worth of untapped mineral resources. 24 trillion. A number so large it becomes abstract. Until you realize that the country whose soil contains this wealth has a GDP that is a rounding error in comparison. The paradox is so extreme it has a name, the resource curse. The land gave everything. The people received almost nothing. Not because the wealth wasn't there, because others took it. The city's Kinshasa is not a city that asks for your attention. It takes it. It overwhelms you. It absorbs you into a current of humanity so dense, so loud, so continuously in motion that the concept of personal space becomes philosophical rather than practical. Kinshasa has a metropolitan area population of 21,852,144. That makes it the largest city in Africa, larger than Lagos by some estimates, larger than Cairo. A megacity that has grown with a speed and intensity that no urban planning infrastructure has ever managed to keep pace with. In 2005, the population of Kinshasa was 7,646,890. Kinshasa has grown by 1,065,741 in the last year, which represents a 5.13% annual change. Kinshasa sits on the south bank of the Congo River, directly across from Brazzaville, the capital of the Republic of Congo, making them the two closest capital cities in the world, separated by a river and an entirely different national history. You can see one from the other. On certain evenings, when the light catches the river between them, the two cities face each other like a conversation that has been going on for a century and that neither side is ready to finish. The streets of Kinshasa are not quiet at any hour. The traffic achieves a density that would make a traffic engineer from Sao Paulo or Mumbai nod in recognition. The yellow buses, the esprits de mort, the spirits of death. Named with the dark humor that Quinoa apply to every mortal reality, move through the congestion in ways that defy physics and traffic law simultaneously. Motorcycle taxis weave between vehicles at speeds that constitute a daily negotiation with probability. The entire transport system functions on a combination of improvisation, familiarity, and a collective acceptance of risk that is not recklessness but adaptation. The rational behavior of millions of people moving through a city that was built for a fraction of its current population. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is one of Africa's most ethnically diverse nations, with more than 250 to 450 ethnic groups, generally grouped into four major ethno-linguistic families: Bantu, Central Sudanic, Nilotic, and Pygmy. The four largest, Mongo, Luba, Congo, all Bantu, and the Mangbatu Azande, make up about 45% of the population. The Congo people, one of the great civilizations of pre-colonial Africa, occupy the West, their history tied to the Kingdom of Congo that existed long before the Portuguese arrived, and that maintained diplomatic relations with European powers as equals until the power imbalance made equality impossible. The Luba and Lunda empires of the south and center built political systems of extraordinary sophistication, systems of governance, trade, justice, and succession that European historians have only recently begun to take seriously as political philosophy rather than anthropological curiosity. The Mongo people of the equatorial forest, the Azande of the north, whose artistic traditions and political structures were documented in detail by Evans Pritchard, achieving a strange kind of fame, well known in anthropology departments worldwide, largely unknown to the global public. The linguistic landscape matches the ethnic one in scale. French is the official language, another Belgian inheritance, but four national languages bind the country together across its impossible distances. Lingala dominates in the West, and in Kinshasa, the language of music and of the military, spread through the country by both art and force. While Swahili is the dominant language in eastern areas and beyond, Lingala, which is known for its melodic rhythm, is more common in western parts. Chiluba governs the center. Kikongo commands the southwest. Beyond these, hundreds of local languages create a mosaic of communication that makes the Congo a place where translation is not a service but a way of life. The Congolese relationship with identity is complicated in ways that outsiders consistently underestimate. Ethnic identity is real and meaningful. It structures marriages, political alliances, cultural practices, and the geography of belonging. But national identity is also real, forged in shared suffering and shared music, and a shared sense of being from a place that the world has exploited without apology. Being Congolese is not a single thing. It is hundreds of things layered on top of one another, held together by the river and the music and the specific defiant Congolese insistence on joy in the face of conditions that would justify permanent despair. To understand the Congo, you must understand what was done to it, not as background, not as context, as the cause. In 1885, the Berlin Conference gave control of the Congo not to Belgium, but to one man, King Leopold II. The Congo Free State was his personal property, a colony owned not by a nation, but by a monarch, operated for the sole purpose of extracting wealth. Rubber, ivory, and eventually minerals were extracted using a system of forced labor so brutal that historians estimate between 1 and 10 million Congolese died during Leopold's rule. The figure varies because no one counted. The deaths were not recorded because the dead were not considered people whose deaths required recording. Workers who failed to meet rubber quotas had their hands cut off. This was not aberration. This was system. The severed hands were collected as proof that bullets had not been wasted, a cost control mechanism rendered in human flesh. When international outcry eventually forced Leopold to cede the territory to the Belgian state in 1908, the Belgian Congo that replaced it was less sadistic but no less extractive. The colonial system built infrastructure, roads, railways, mines, designed to move resources out of the country, not to serve the people within it. Education was provided only at the primary level for most Congolese. At independence in 1960, the entire country had fewer than 30 university graduates. 30 in a country of 15 million people. This was not an oversight, it was a strategy. An educated population asks questions. An uneducated one can only comply. At the time of its independence in 1960, the Democratic Republic of the Congo was the second most industrialized country in Africa after South Africa. It had a thriving mining sector, and its agriculture sector was relatively productive. The infrastructure was real, but it was someone else's infrastructure, built to extract someone else's wealth. And when independence came, the architects of that infrastructure left, taking the knowledge of how to maintain it and the capital to replace it. Independence arrived on June 30th, 1960. Patrice Lumumba, the country's first democratically elected prime minister. A man of extraordinary intellect and dangerous idealism, lasted 72 days before being deposed in a coup and assassinated. The CIA was involved. Belgium was involved. The details have been acknowledged partially decades later, but acknowledgement is not accountability, and the ghost of what Lumumba might have built if he had been allowed to live is one of the great unanswered questions of African history. What followed was Mobutu Sese Seko, 32 years of dictatorship, propped up by the United States and Western allies who valued his anti-communist alignment more than the welfare of his people. Mobutu renamed the country Zaire, renamed himself, built palaces, accumulated a personal fortune estimated in the billions, and allowed the national infrastructure to rot with a completeness that was itself a kind of governance philosophy. The state as personal property, the nation as extraction site, the population as an inconvenience to be managed rather than a people to be served. When Mobutu fell in 1997, what followed was not peace but a new kind of catastrophe. The First and Second Congo Wars between 1996 and 2003 drew in 9 African nations and produced what has been called Africa's World War. The 2 recent conflicts have dramatically reduced national output and government revenue, have increased external debt, and have resulted in the deaths of more than 5 million people from war and associated famine and disease. 5 million, more than any conflict since World War II. And the world did not stop. The Security Council did not mobilize the way it mobilizes for conflicts in places the international community considers central to its interests. The deaths occurred in the margins of global attention, in a country that the world had always treated as a source of materials rather than a home of people. The 52-year wait the moment the title refers to is not a single event, it is a threshold. In 1974, the Congo, then Zaire, hosted the most famous boxing match in history, Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman. The rumble in the jungle. Mobutu spent an estimated $10 million to bring the fight to Kinshasa because he understood something about spectacle and national prestige that his understanding of governance never matched. For one night, the world looked at the Congo and saw something other than poverty and extraction. It saw power, celebration, a capital city alive with music and pride. That was 52 years ago. In the decades since, the Congo has waited, not passively, not helplessly, but with the specific endurance of a people who know that the systems designed to exploit them will not dismantle themselves. The 52-year wait is the time between that moment of global visibility and the emergence of a generation that is now, finally, building something that is not being built for someone else. Growth is expected to exceed 5% in 2026 and 2027, driven by continued development in the mining sector and investment. In 2025, against a backdrop of conflict in the eastern part of the country, real GDP growth was 5.5%. Despite conflict in the east, the DROC's economy has shown resilience, driven largely by mining and strategic reforms. Real GDP grew 8.4% in 2023, following a peak of 8.9% in 2022. But the numbers are only the skeleton. The flesh is in Kinshasa's tech startups, in the young Congolese entrepreneurs, building digital payment systems in a country where most transactions are still cash, in the artists whose work is reaching Paris and Brussels not through colonial channels but through Instagram and TikTok, and the democratizing power of platforms that do not require anyone's permission. In the musicians whose sounds are crossing borders the way Congolese rumba crossed them in the 20th century, not asking for entry, but arriving with such force that the doors open on their own. The moment is not about a single date. It is about a country reaching the point where its own people, not its extractors, not its donors, not its peacekeepers, determine what happens next. This is the Democratic Republic of Congo. Not the crisis, not the commodity, not the conflict, not the charity case, not the abstraction on a mineral trading screen. 116 million people, over 200 languages, 2 million square kilometers of forest and savanna and mountain and river and mineral wealth that belongs by every moral measure to the people who live above it. A country that powered the atomic bomb and then the mobile phone and is now powering the electric car, and that has been waiting with a patience that is running out for the world to acknowledge what it has taken and what it owes. A country that was the personal property of a king, the playground of a dictator, the battlefield of 9 nations, and the supply closet of the global technology industry, and that has remained through all of it a place where people dress beautifully and dance with full commitment and cook with ancient knowledge and make music that changed the sound of an entire continent. The 52-year wait is ending, not because the world woke up. Because the Congolese decided they were done sleeping. The phone is in your hand. The cobalt is inside it. The question is not whether you will think about the Congo today. The question is whether, now that you know, you can afford not to.